UK. Currently, where I am, I'm in Egypt. It's close to midnight while I'm doing the Zoom. Uh, yeah, I've been doing network marketing for the last 4 years almost. By profession, I'm an IT consultant, but been involved into crypto since 5 years plus, doing networking for the last 4 years. And I've tried different crypto projects. I've also dabbled into Forex before this opportunity. And here I am today. So what I'm going to do is through this course of this 1 hour session, we are going to talk about this particular opportunity, mainly about giving you all the information on the broker, Monexa, and a brief talk about the trader, whom majority of our members are following, and why we have chosen this broker for longevity, basically. I'm sorry, just to advise, I won't be able to record Zooms for compliance purposes, in order to protect this opportunity for the longer run, as you can appreciate. So I will make sure that I will try to do regular Zooms at least once a week for now. Uh, Going forward towards the end of December, we may have one more person accompanying me to do uh, to lead another Zoom. So we may have 2 Zooms per week, hopefully from December or latest January onwards. So what I'm going to do, without wasting any time, I'm just going to first share my screen and run through a disclaimer. Bear with me. And let me just do this before I make this anything big. Let me see if I could change this into a presentation mode. That's view. Slide. Sorry. Normal. And that's F5. 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 Oh, sorry. Something else. Slide show from beginning. Okay. So first one as a disclaimer, I'm not an employee of Monexa, neither, I'm related to any member working for Monexa. The information that I present in this particular Zoom is based on my own due diligence that I've conducted as when I initially started on Monexa. And all the information I present here should be taken as information only. I'm not a financial advisor as well. So just to clarify, any information I share should not be taken as a recommendation, but just an information. I do expect every single member to go and do their own due diligence. This Zoom is not about me trying to convince anybody to join Monexa, right? This Zoom is only about giving you the information. What you do with that information should be your own decision, okay? And so starting with Monexa itself, before how I came across Monexa. So as I mentioned, I have tried different opportunities from crypto space, going into doing some crypto MLMs, and even I tried some few Forex projects. There are quite a few people whom I know within this Zoom call, whom I have collaborated with on a couple of projects in the past. Now, all the projects that we have tried, more or less, didn't lasted, if we are perfectly honest, and most of you will agree to that. And somewhere around March, April last year, I decided, I had enough of all this scams and, I'm tired of it. I want to pursue something of my own. And because of all my networking journey, I had established some investor contacts who were ready to partner up with me to start our own small brokerage. So with that in mind, I was in Dubai last year for about 2.5 months, and we were trying to assemble a team of people who were looking to come together to start a brokerage. Bear in mind, starting a brokerage is not an overnight thing. It takes months and months of planning, efforts, compliance, KYC stuff, etc., etc. During this process, somebody suggested to me, why didn't you meet this guy, Chris Trichomatis? And because he has recently started a brokerage, and the kind of services we were looking for in terms of risk management, he may be able to guide you because he has recently started, so he may be able to guide you in the direction. So that's how I got introduced to Chris, who is the founder of Monexa, and we started talking. So initially, the talks were not about me doing anything on Monexa. The talks were about how Chris would help me with his risk management services to manage the flow behind the scenes for all the trade executions, etc. And during the discussions back and forth, I realized that here is somebody who is coming across quite authentic, quite transparent, saying very things without putting any rosy picture around it. And I liked what I heard and what I saw coming from this person. And that made me think, you know what, let me park what we were thinking on the side, because so, as I mentioned, starting a brokerage is not an overnight thing. It can take months and months of preparation. And even the people whom I was collaborating, the investors, they felt, you know what, you know, let's start working with this guy and see how it goes. And that's how I started on Monexa. And initially, I started back in July 2023. Didn't go too hard. I only spoke to a few people about it initially. We were testing the waters, if I put it that way, and everything was working smoothly, right? Still is working smoothly. Uh, but because of my past experience and the what we have suffered, even I have suffered, because to be honest, there were a couple of projects in the past also which looked too good, and we didn't feel they would ever scam, but they did. So there was this, you know, what do you say, and always a fear factor that, you know, what if it happens again? So to eliminate that completely, we made a trip to Kuala Lumpur back in November 2023. I took few of my leaders along with me, and we met Chris for the first time in person. He introduced us to his entire back office team, which included head of IT, sales, customer support, the risk management team, which actually they sit in Cyprus, they don't sit in Malaysia. But literally, he opened the doors to us to meet everybody, a majority of them in person. And the level of transparency that we saw, even in person, was absolutely mind blowing. And that gave me 2000% conviction that this is the opportunity that and I'm sure most of us were waiting for. And I knew that if not right away, over a period of time, whether it takes 5 months, 6 months, year, 2 years, this opportunity will pick up momentum, and it is now, basically. So here we are today. So that has been how my journey started on Monexa. Now, coming back to the founder himself, Chris Trichomitis, he's the founder. Now, he has got over 19 years of experience in Forex. Bear in mind, this is not a CEO who has been propped up to face one uh, project, you know, and if that project fails, that CEO disappears out of thin air, like as we have seen on a couple of other projects. He is a well-known figure in Forex space. He has worked for top brokerages like Exness, Pepperstone, FX Primus. Like for Exness, he was established markets director for Exness. And people who know Exness, that's one of the top brokerages, been around for 14 years plus. So this is a guy who is very well known within the Forex space. He's not a guy where if something, God forbid, if something really goes wrong with Monexa tomorrow and he would just disappear. No, he's not that sort of a guy. He is literally well known, and there's no way for him to hide in a way, right? He's originally coming back to his personal background. He's originally half Brit, half Greek. Uh, uh, his parents live in London, in UK, but his own family, he's based in Thailand, basically. Right. So currently he's in Thailand. And people, you know, he's fully visible to people, very transparent. There are many leaders who have already had Zooms with him. There are quite a few who have actually personally met him in person as well. So very transparent. And, you know, even new leaders who have joined the Zoom, if you wish to arrange Zoom with him, we'll be more than happy to arrange it directly with Chris. Absolutely not a problem at all. And just to let you, going back to more about his profile, if I just change my screen and take you to LinkedIn. If you go on LinkedIn, if you type Christopher Matters, that's his profile out there. And if you carefully look at his profile, he's already got over 19K followers. So that will tell you something that how well-known figure he is within the Forex space, right? And also, if you scroll towards his history below, it will show you his work profile. As you can see, his work for Exness, his work for FX Primers, his work for Thomson Reuters. So all the top companies or well-known companies in the market, he has worked for them. So he's not one of those shady characters, if I put it that way, especially for new members who, are skeptical when they first hear about a new brokerage. So just to give you that assurance that his profile is fully verified that way, not just by me, but many, many people who have done their own due diligence on Monexa. Now, going back to Monexa, it's from coming back to regulations now. Now, on monexa.com webpage, at the very bottom, if you go, you would find their license details. So here, if I go to monexa.com, sorry, I'm not able to see the chat, and the screen isn't showing socials. Okay, not sure why. Bear with me. Let me just stop the screen share. Let me just double share the screen. Okay, let me share the screen this way. That may help. Okay, so this should be fine. So if I go to Monexa website, and if you scroll at the very bottom, so these are the license details, as you can see over here. The main license is this FSC Mauritius license, which is this license number here. So Monexa is regulated by FSC Mauritius, which is in Forex world, Mauritius is considered to be a tier 1 regulator. Okay. And you can also check on FSC Mauritius website, which is over here. I will share the link of this website in the chat. So people, especially new members, can use this link to check the details themselves. So as you can see, on the FSC Mauritius website, you can clearly see the regulator information for Monexa. Apart from FSC Mauritius, they also have got an offshore license in Anguilla. Some people who do not understand how regulations work in Forex may question why they need to go for an offshore license, because sometimes people have this misunderstanding offshore license is equal to a scammy broker. Majority of them scam to an extent. We have seen that before. I do not deny that. But just because they are offshore license for example, in Anguilla, doesn't make them scammy every single time. The reason they had to go for Anguilla license is because top tier regulators like FSC Mauritius or ASIC or FCA UK, if a broker only has these licenses, they cannot offer high leverages like 200, 500,000. If you go to monexa.com and if you try to open an account, you see leverages up to 2,000 on a self-trading account. Why they're able to do it? Because of this license in Anguilla that they have managed to put in place. If they didn't have this license and they only had FSC Mauritius license, the maximum leverage they could have given to us is only 50 and not beyond that. And pretty sure majority of us would not even have thought about joining Monexa, because all of us pretty much would want to have the flexibility of a higher leverage. That's number one. Number two, MetaCode's software, one of their requirements is to have an offshore license, which is why Anguilla license was put in place. But their main license is the Mauritius one. And just to give you a brief more insight into how the security of funds work for a former regulated broker. So because they have got an FSC Mauritius license, there's a compliance officer which is sitting in Mauritius, who undertakes a regular audit of all the MT4, MT5 balances of client accounts that belong to Monexa. The total of all the deposits that sit within the MT4/MT5 accounts should match the total money that sits in the client segregated account, which is in a Mauritius bank account, basically. If it doesn't match, that the regulator can always pull Monexa for questioning. That's how regulation works in Forex in real terms. For that matter, for that goes to any brokerage which has been governed by a top tier regulator. I'm not only talking about Monexa here. Monexa has a separate bank account for the day-to-day operations for their own P&L. So, but they cannot touch the client funds, which is sitting in a separate account. Okay, so that's how the regulation works. Adding another information, Monexa up until 4 to 5 months back, they had ASIC license. Now, some of you may have come across an article that they had ASIC before, but that ASIC was not a independent license, so it was under somebody else's name, etc., etc. While partially that information is true, but some of the articles, how they presented information, is factually incorrect as well, partially. So just to give you a bit history around it, Monexa was started as a partnership with a brokerage in Australia by the name of Hay Markets back in 2022. And because it was started in partnership with Hay Markets, and Hay Markets was a broker in Australia, been running for a good number of years, Monexa was in a position to get the ASIC regulation pretty much from the first or second year itself, basically. You can register a business with ASIC. We have seen many projects who used to shout out on that top of their lungs that we are ASIC registered or regulated, blah, blah, blah. Registering with ASIC is an easy job, but regulation from ASIC is a completely different ball game. Registration and regulation are two different things altogether, right? And this is where people get confused. Now, to get regulation from ASIC, new businesses never get regulation from year one of the operations, whether it's ASIC, whether it's FCA UK, you name it, all the top, even SEC for that matter, you don't get regulation from the first year of business. Now, because of this partnership that Monexa had, they were able to get that ASIC in place. However, partially because of the fact that ASIC has kind of developed a bad name to an extent, because of all this other projects trying to take advantage of how easy it is to register with ASIC, plus the fact that Monexa is diverting to FCA UK in 2025, they have removed the ASIC license. They've come out of the ASIC license. So technically, when Monexa had ASIC, yes, they had ASIC, but it was not an independent license. It was, you can say, a representative license because they were in partnership with this broker, right? FSC Mauritius is classed as an independent license belonging wholly and solely to Monexa. So that's the difference, and that's the backstory of Monexa. If somebody comes back to you giving you articles about ASIC and all those crap as to, or they were, not, they were under somebody else's name, etc., etc. So that is the backstory about it, just to clarify that. Coming to regulations, 2025, they are expected to have FCA regulation in place and also FSA in South Africa, which is another a well-known license in Forex industry. Monexa has already bought a company in South Africa that already has been approved an FSA license. And now the way things work in this South Africa's businesses, once they buy the business which already has an FSA license, the next step is they have to reapply for the KYC related stuff because they have to change the founders or the directors' details, etc., etc. So that process will take few months, and then hopefully Monexa will also have an FSA in place for South Africa. So by the time 2025 ends, 99.99% these two licenses will be in place aside from FSC Mauritius. Now, quite a few people ask, okay, what makes this project or this brokerage genuine, right? Or the longevity around it. Why this broker will not scam compared to other brokers. Now, before I answer that question, I would like to just, sorry, there are some, okay, I'm just gonna get the charts later. Before I answer that question, let me first give you a brief understanding of how things work in Forex, because usually people don't have a very clear picture, not their fault, but it's just that because they never have been told of exactly how things work in the forex space or how trades are executed. So I'm just going to take 5 minutes to briefly explain that first. So, and once you understand this, you will know why this is a long-term project and that can last for years and years to come. So over here, what you see is a screenshot that I've taken from an MT4/MT5, which under your quotes section. What you see is the screen where you see select all the instruments you want to trade. This screen is nothing but a pricing feed, right? And if I just increase the resolution, and for each instrument, for example, within gold, what you see, the number here is a spread. Spread is nothing but like a commission that is charged by the liquidity provider, which offers this pricing fee to the broker. So the liquidity provider charges a certain commission. On top of that commission, Monexa, or for that matter, any other broker, they top up their share of commission. So this 33 number that you see is the total commission of the liquidity provider and the broker combined together, basically. Okay. So this is so far so clear. Now, in trading world, you may have heard about A book and B book. Now, some people again have this misunderstanding that a broker who does B book is a scam broker, and a broker who does A book only is a legitimate broker. Now, first things first, and I like to clarify this, that no broker in this world can do pure A book, or because without a B book, they cannot manage their risk properly, right? So if any broker tells you that they only do A book, they're outright lying. The majority of, almost not majority, every broker has a combination of A book and B book. And when I say every broker, I mean to say brokers who operate legitimately. That includes Monexa, that includes other brokers like IC Markets, Pepperstone, XNES, etc. They all have a combo of A and B books. Scammy brokers only do B books. They don't even go to A books, right? Now, how does an A book work and a B book work? Here I have given us an example. So in A book, we are the retail trader, because in Forex world, a retail trader is somebody who deposits less money, $1,000, $2,000, $10,000, $50,000. Institutional traders or institutional investors are people who deposit in millions, basically, right? And we are classed as retail traders. So when we take a trade, or we follow a trader who takes a trade in copy trading, there are two possibilities. A trade can turn into a profit, or a trade can turn into a loss. Under both circumstances, if the broker decides to do A book, in this case Monexa, it passes the flow to the liquidity provider, right? What does the liquid? If the trade is a profit, the liquidity provider pays the profit directly to the trader via the broker, right? If the trade is a loss, Monexa passes the flow to the liquidity provider, and the loss, the money that has been lost, is being taken by the liquidity provider, right? Under both circumstances, whether it's a profit or a loss, the liquidity provider makes the commission which they charge as part of this number here, right? Because they're making that commission here. So they've made that commission. And if you remember, I told you just a few minutes ago, whatever commission liquidity provider charges, on top of that, broker has also marked up their commission share, right? So the liquidity provider makes their commission. They pass their broker share of commission to Monexa, and from within their share of commission, Monexa then pays the IBs to the people who have introduced the trader. So here, if gold has got 33 pips of spread, out of this 33, let's say the total commission charge was, by the LP was, let's say 10 as an example, and 25 was, oh sorry, 23 was charged by Monexa as an example. So from 23, 15 is paid out to IBs across the 6 levels. I'll come to IBs in a bit shortly, but this is how does the commissions work. So in effect, the commission that the IB or the upline earn from the broker is not coming from the customer deposits. It is coming from the broker's share of their profit, if that makes sense, right? And this makes the opportunity sustainable. So right now we have got over 170 people in the Zoom. If all of us, 170 people, end up making $10,000 a day in IB commissions, it will still be sustainable, right? That's the bottom line story of this uh, of this process, basically, right? Coming to B-book as well. Now, okay, before I forget, don't forget, even if the trade is a loss, you still get paid commission. This is another important bit, right? Whether the trade makes a profit or a loss, the broker ends up paying commission to the IB. The same scenario happens in B book. The only difference in B book, when the trade is taken, whether it's a profit or a loss, Monexa does not pass the flow to the LP. Sometimes, not all the time. They decide to pay the profits either from their own books, or if the loss happened, they decide to absorb the loss. Now, one of the traders that most of the members are following, who is Dan, all his trades are currently being A-booked. That has been confirmed by Chris himself. So that's not an issue because the volume on Dan is growing with every single day. So all the trades have been fulfilled on A-book. But let's say the likes of me or somebody from this Zoom, we are doing self-trading as an example, right? We are not that big in terms of volume for our trading. So it's highly possible, depending upon the lots that we trade, the trading style that we have, etc., Monexa may decide to fulfill our trades on B book because it's easy for them to fulfill it without going through the LP. So that's perfectly possible. That's not a problem. But under both circumstances, even on B book, liquidity provider still makes the commission because because of the pricing fee. They made the markup. They pass on the markup by which Monexa has kept for themselves to Monexa. And from that markup, Monexa still pays the IB rebates to the IB. So whether the trade gets fulfilled on A book or a B book, the networkers will get paid IBs, and also the IBs, just to reiterate, does not come from the customer deposit. It comes from brokers' share of profits. And this is why the opportunity is sustainable. With all the projects that we have done till date, the commissions that we have made, whether you talk about fast track bonus or matching bonus or you name it, all this, your fancy words that we have seen in other projects before, all those were coming from the customer deposits, right? But here, the customer deposits are always secured. You, as a member, can deposit and withdraw your entire capital at any given point of time. There is no lock-in period. So, but at the same time, the person who introduces his team as his volume grows, right? No matter whether he makes $10 a day or $1,000 a day or $20,000 a day in IB, it's not coming from his team's deposits. That's the thing that you have to remember, and that is what it makes this opportunity sustainable, right? Now, some people rightly question, just a few minutes before I started to Zoom, somebody messaged me on WhatsApp and asked me a question. Oh, why did you choose an unknown broker? And I just said, just join the Zoom and you'll get all the answers. So this is the partial answer that I'm sharing with you now. But the other point I'd like to say is, what makes a broker known and unknown? Just the fact that, let's say, if this person who messaged me on WhatsApp, as an example, if this person is trading on a broker like IC Markets, as an example, what makes IC Markets known and Monexa unknown? You know, just because IC Markets has been in the market